From Vassar College, this is Conversations at the Salt Line with Wesley Dixon. On this episode, a conversation with Eddie Gamarra and Damon Ross.
Hey everyone, it's me, Wes, and we're here with another episode of Conversations at the Salt Line for the first time in the Salt Line restaurant at the Heartwood Hotel here at Vassar's campus in Poughkeepsie, New York. And I am super excited to have two special guests here. It's our first time having two guests on the podcast. I have to say, they're kind of a mess. And so it's going to be a great episode, 100%. But let me introduce them briefly. They're both class of 1994 from Vassar. Damon Ross, producer of Juggernaut's animated film. I was asked to say that word, so I'm trying to follow instructions. And his colleague, friend, and classmate, Eddie Gamarra, founder of Gamarra Media, former literary agent, and just overall producer and media executive. Is that okay?
That's fabulous.
Okay,
Thank you.
wonderful. Well, I'm so happy to be here with you all, honestly. And it is actually a really big privilege to have you all here, in part because I know, and we'll get into it, that you all have a very deep and long and meaningful relationship. And so to be able to be a part of the conversation with folks who've been in such a meaningful relationship that has gone through all kinds of life up and downs, industry up and downs, just things that happen is a privilege and a blessing for me. So thank you all for sitting
Thank you,
with me
Russ.
at the table.
We're humbled and honored to be here.
That is so sweet.
And we're also here to entertain, so
And I'm sure you will do that.
you'll
You will definitely do that.
Learning through laughter.
I love that.
That was my big takeaway from last night.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Before we start, because I want to hear about your Vassar experience, I want to play a little game. I know you're on campus for Sophomore Career Connections.
Yeah.
And you're playing a version of this game tonight, but not the same game not the same version we're going to play here.
Awesome.
Okay. As folks who graduated from Vassar in the 90s and worked on and still work on animated films, I wanted to do sort of a family feud around some sort of animated film kind of thing. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do my best Steve Harvey. I'm not bald. I don't
That's
have
okay.
sort of a garish suit on, but I'm gonna ask some questions that have some answers. Okay?
Love it. Love it.
So whoever sort of like hits the table first, when I
Mm.
sort of we're gonna really try
Is
to
it my top answers on the board?
top answers are on the board.
Okay.
They're on my paper.
Wow.
And the category is everyone ready? Yeah. We don't want any messes in our Salt Line restaurant. Okay.
Yeah.
So whoever taps first, you're gonna
Yeah.
get your answer, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So the category is most popular Disney animated films from the 90s. Yeah.
The Lion King.
Okay, that is the third most popular. Third most popular. Do you wanna play or
Well,
pass?
does he have the chance to
I guess that's right.
to beat me?
I'm
Yeah,
not a good Steve Harvey.
Beauty and the Beast.
That is there, but it's lower.
Ooh.
So I guess you get to play. You get to go with you. Yeah.
Keep going.
So there's 10 on my list.
Oh, keep going.
Yeah. So give me, and if you get 3 wrong, then Eddie
Sorry,
gets
all
sort of
Disney,
steal.
right?
All
Disney
Disney
from
from
the
the
90s.
90s.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to flash back to the Disney animated films I saw while I was here. Aladdin.
Correct. Ding, 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 ding. Number 2
That
answer.
was number 2.
Yeah.
Right. Lion King was after me, actually. Right.
I can show you the world.
My favorite Lion King. That's your thing. No, that's not even
Little
Aladdin.
Mermaid.
But what's your?
The Mermaid.
Little Mermaid. Number
Yeah,
one.
The Mermaid.
That's not on my list.
What?
No,
Little Mermaid.
it's not. Whatever audience answers the question, they do not like that movie.
Interesting. That's crazy. That's my favorite movie.
Ooh. Okay. You said Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Little Mermaid, Lion King.
Yeah. You're missing the number 1 answer for this audience of people.
This audience.
Or
Wait,
even
who is
Pixar.
the audience?
Whoever it's some online.
Oh, and is it also Pixar, which is part of
Yes,
Disney?
that's what it
Or is that like can I say Toy Story?
Yeah.
That's not on this list.
Okay.
Okay, so we Pixar's Wally. Pixar's.
Okay.
It is one of. It happens to be. It's not gonna help you. But it happens to be one of my favorite Disney movies from this period of time. You of course weren't like maybe watching animated Disney movies back then.
no,
At
for
this
sure.
time,
Oh,
really?
for sure.
We'll talk
100%.
about that later.
Oh, yeah.
We used to take big groups of people.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we went to go see
Yeah.
Edward Scissorhands and Ryback and
Yeah.
Oh,
Nightmare Before Christmas and all that
The
stuff.
Doors.
The Doors.
We have a lot of movies to get through, but you all have not named.
Okay, keep going. Keep going.
And jeez. How about
Our ignorance is too long a segment.
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna pass.
Pass. Okay. You can still if you get
can
one of
still-
these,
yeah.
you win the whole game. There was like 6 more on here that have not been
I mean,
named.
it's from the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, Tangled.
No,
Yeah, that's-
lost. Okay, so Damon wins, but let me read you the rest
Yeah,
of the
please.
list. So number 1 was Mulan.
Yeah.
Field.
That was like
Yes.
98, 97,
From that
98.
point. That's
Yeah,
fascinating.
Mulan. That's number one.
On
Yeah,
this
that's
list,
shocking.
Very shocking.
Mulan, Aladdin, Lion King,
Yeah.
Hercules.
Okay, yeah.
We got Beauty and the Beast,
Yeah.
Pocahontas,
Okay. Sure.
Tarzan,
Interesting.
Hunchback of Notre Dame,
Yep. Yep.
a Goofy movie,
A goofy movie.
and The Rescuers Down Under.
Sure.
So now that you've heard them, they make sense. So
Yeah,
it makes
yeah,
sense.
absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what? A lot of them were after we graduated, so I was really focused on our.
Those are like the Alan Menken years, like when we was doing the music.
They were just churning them out.
Yeah. I mean, but Mulan number one is fascinating for whatever that demographic was.
Whoever it was, man.
Yeah. Because Beauty and the Beast was Oscar nominated for Best Picture, which was rare. Lion King
And
is
his
no
life was
juggernaut.
far and away the biggest.
It is actually like it's
Yeah.
my personal favorite.
Yeah.
Or like it's just when I was
Yeah,
associating the most with the Disney movie of the
Little
90s.
Mermaid was that for me.
Really?
Oh,
What's your favorite song?
From singing.
Well, no,
Oh,
this one that was
from
Aladdin.
Aladdin.
Whole New World is one.
Oh yeah.
That's my karaoke song when I'm not sounding like Robert Kennedy
Right.
Jr. It's not my normal voice.
So what's your favorite song?
Kiss the Girl. Come on.
And what about you?
Honestly, I gotta admit, I went to all these films. I'm not a huge Disney.
That's okay. That's okay.
fanatic.
That's okay. My that's
yeah.
okay. My favorite is Be Prepared
Mm.
in The Lion King. It just sort of crescendos in a very sort of
Sure.
like, powerful way. And actually, not just the song; it's how they like portrayed it in the movie. Sort of
Right.
like the hyenas and the thing, and it's like so ominous. It's just very.
Love it.
I love it.
Love it. Love it.
Well, thank you for indulging me in our little game.
Fun.
It's very, very fun.
Yeah.
And I, again, am just happy to be with you all because you all have such a dynamic relationship. And I want to go back to sort of where that started. Of course, it was here at Vassar. But I want you all to reflect, for me, maybe for yourselves, on the beginnings of that relationship. We'll get into how it's morphed over time, but just reflect on the genesis of how you all sort of met and became friends.
Sure. You want me to go first?
Go for it. Let's see if the story's aligned.
So, I went to an all boys.
It's like Russian.
I went to an all boys Catholic high school in Manhattan.
Okay.
I'm from Staten Island originally.
So it's Jim.
So, Jim. So when I got to Daviston House, I immediately befriended 2 other guys who also went to all boys Catholic schools. Because going from an all boys Catholic school to Vassar is a massive culture change.
Yeah.
But in our whole fellows group, Damon and his roommate, and I and my roommate, were all in this little cluster of 8.
Got it.
Damon's roommate was this like super handsome, classically handsome guy, sexy guy. My roommate was a super tall, handsome guy, and I felt like
They
a
were
total
friends,
schlub.
right?
They were friends. They were friends. But Damon wasn't around for the semester a whole lot. Was a lot more around Davis in the second semester, and he kind of came into our
I
fold.
was dating a girl in Smith.
Okay.
So I was away almost every weekend or every other weekend. So it was yeah. I didn't have. I wasn't.
When did you all? So you must have
Yeah,
broken up
I
at the end of the first semester.
Yeah.
You broke up with her at the end of the first
In the
semester
first semester
because you
yeah.
showed up more often in the
Yeah,
second semester.
that's right,
Okay.
He was around.
Cemented the friendship in the second semester.
Yeah, but we were also psych. We took psychology classes, and
Almost the exact same.
yeah, we had a lot of overlapping classes. Yeah, film and psych. Yeah,
But we really, for my recollection, it was the basement of Jameson.
Yeah.
Where there were pool tables.
yeah.
Really, I'm sure old television. That played. What was the hot show?
Don't tell me. Not Dynasty.
On Saturday nights, we would watch SNL and then Showtime with the Apollo.
For sure.
Yeah.
They'll come to me. There's no show that I never really watched.
Yeah.
But we ordered pizza and played pool.
Yeah, a lot.
And a lot.
Yeah.
And that was the scene.
stuff.
That
Yeah.
was the scene, and we both were reasonably good at pool. Sure. And played a lot. And then just laughed a lot.
Yeah.
I love that. Those stories
And
end up.
we were on the same floor. We were on the fourth floor.
Fourth floor Davidson.
So we were in the same little hall group.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yes. Well, then yes. Do we have the same like
Student fellowship.
student family?
Yes.
Do you remember her name?
I believe it was Karen Betts. I believe.
I don't know if he's right.
You can't confirm that. It's okay. He said it kind of confidently, so I'm gonna assume that
I say a lot of stuff with an air of confidence.
And what percentage of it? What percentage of it is accurate?
In my mind, 99%.
Okay,
But
but in
in
real
real
life,
life,
yeah.
it's like 70.
Okay, that's all. That's
Like
that's all
52.
pretty
A
much.
lot of hallucinations.
Percentage.
Yeah, a lot of
That's a
hallucinations.
decent percentage, though.
Ah,
That's
sure.
pretty good. So y'all met at Vassar. You graduated from Vassar, and 22 years later, you're sitting here
Yes.
at this table, but here to be the keynote speakers of Software Career Connections, which I'm happy to have you all here on campus for. But I heard before we started recording that actually it wasn't sort of a dual ask.
No.
Only one of you were asked to be the keynote speaker, and then one demanded that the other had to be there. So I'm not going to say who, but I want them to sort of self-profess which one was asked and then which one was demanded to be a part of that ask as well.
I guess I was asked first.
You were asked
But
only.
I think you were always asked in spirit.
No, not at all true.
So, but no, I was asked, and I mean, to be very honest, the first instinct was like, I'm not into that. It's like, speeches are generally a little dry, in my opinion, and I didn't like to think of myself doing something very dry.
Yeah.
And so I immediately thought, well, I had a cohort, a partner in crime, at least there'd be some like fun energy there.
Yeah.
And then that evolved into a game where we started with this podcast. So I'm not sure how much we're revealing about that, but yes, it's a Family Feud style game, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
We put a lot of thought and attention to the deck, the PowerPoint deck, and not a ton of rehearsal.
Not that this afternoon.
It'll be authentic. It'll be organic.
You have an amazing ability to be improvisationally funny, David. Just rely on that.
But you were the talent. He was the performer. I was the behind the scenes guy, which is why I'm the producer.
Right.
He is the talent.
Damon Fallon told me that I had to do this, and I was like, enter anyway. So he's like,
You're
whatever you
gonna
want
be
me to
there.
do,
Oh,
it's
do
fine.
it.
It's fine.
I love it.
And also, we're from this. We had the same dorm, pretty much the same
Transcript.
transcript,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Same
and
careers.
literally our careers are
Parallel. Parallel. Yeah.
Well, let's
The
talk.
same. We're the same person.
Yin yang.
I don't know that you're the same person.
I'm black and you're white.
Yeah,
This
there's
person's that, you have something.
there's
I'm not
some
sure that you
differences, but I love that you all have a very shared and sympathetic spirit with each other. I think
Yes,
that's a
yes.
beautiful way to say it. But let's talk about, again, your careers a little bit. In between the two of you, the body of work that you've been a part of or produced or sort of contributed to has been just incredible, right? Bad Guys, Maze Runner, Star Girl, Series of Unfortunate Events. It's super. I mean, I can read.
Yeah.
I
He knows
can,
what IMDb
I
is.
can read. And I do respect your time and your work. But it is really cool and really impressive. The work has been so successful and so broad and so sort of wide-reaching. And I'm just curious, sort of sitting at not the end of your career, but sort of further along at the beginning of your career, what do you make of your body of work? If you look back and just say, okay, I was a part of these things with sort of a clean slate, what do you make of yourself? The kind of things that you are attached to, that you invest in, that you believe in? What did that say to you about who you are, who you become?
I mean, for me, the movies I had an opportunity to be part of and to originate, I mean, they really mostly, I'd say over 90% reflect my, who I am, my sensibility, my, I don't know, creative instincts.
Yeah.
I definitely lean towards stuff that's sort of weird and funny and but it has like a little like kind of chewy center. That's why we're talking about the Disney films. I don't mind the Disney films. They're a little bit on the traditional saccharine side,
Okay.
maybe a little heavy on the sentiment.
Sure.
And I've leaned over my career, and again, it's instinctive, towards material that is a little bit more left of center and subversive. And but I really do sum it up with these two words, which we talked a lot about when we were making the Bad Guys franchise. It's just when we talk about the tone of that franchise, it does fully embody what I'm about. And the two words that describe that franchise is sophisticated, stupid. So you put those two together, and that pretty much sums up what I'm about.
I love this pause there for a second because, as you know, the podcast does have sort of a thematic driver to, which is sort of these salt lines, or these sort of points of conversion of things that are sort of ostensibly in contrast, but actually come together in a really beautiful way. You sort of stumbled upon one.
I
You
did.
seem
That's
to know
that's
it
the number one that I brought.
as you were saying it. And so I'm curious, just for a few more moments, can we reflect on sort of like how sophistication and stupidity exist together and make something beautiful and magical for you?
How does it make something magical for me? I honestly, I think it's just sort of, it's like you talk about the yin yang. It's the two sides of my personality. I think I appreciate some, like smart material, thoughtful material, and material that has something to say, that has a larger sort of purpose and meaning behind it, has some depth, and then I really like to not take myself too seriously or have my work take itself too seriously, and I like to kind of poke fun and not necessarily parody. That's not exactly what I'm about, but
But it's playful. I mean, it's
playful, absolutely playful, silly.
Yeah.
That's
I love
so
that.
it is. It's the intersection of those two.
That's so cool. What about you, Eddie?
The projects that I've ended up working on over the years as a rep, I used to represent screenwriters, directors,
Right.
animators, publishers, book agencies, authors, and illustrators. Tend to have a kind of literary quality to them while also being commercial. And by commercial, I mean kind of for the masses.
Okay.
Sort of pop culture, but with a little bit of elevation to it. So lowbrow, highbrow,
Yeah.
hybrid. For example, Soho Press, which is a US publisher, had gone to Los Angeles to interview agents to represent their publishing company. And they knew I did a lot of work in the teen and young adult space. And so they were launching a teen imprint, and they wanted us to, interview and represent that division
Yeah.
to sell their books into movies and TV shows. And I said to them, I don't want to represent just your teen imprint. You're a small publisher. I'm sure you have other titles on the grown-up side. Like, what are you working on the grown-up publishing side that you're excited about? And we can talk about figure out a media strategy for those as well. So the woman who runs the company, Berlin Bershka, said, well, we just acquired this book, Slow Horses, actually called Slough House, from a British author named Nick Herron. And I said, great, what's the one-liner? And she said, well, it's about a group of like MI6 agents who all kind of screwed up their careers and get dumped in a countryside manor, but they keep ending up saving the world. I'm like, oh, that's a TV show. She's like, really? And it took 8 years, but we sold it to the British publisher, to a British producer. They packaged it with the showrunner and the actor Gary Oldman, then sold to Apple. And I think it was one of those things where I've always been a reader. I've always been an avid consumer of movies, less of TV shows, but still certain TV shows like The Twilight Zone and early HBO shows.
Hold on, can I pause you? What's your favorite Twilight Zone episode?
I
have one that like
Sure.
is by head and over heels. My favorite.
It's where the gentleman's car breaks down and he leaves the car at the garage and walks back to town, and he re-encounters his childhood self.
Yeah.
And his parents basically say to him, like, we don't know if you are who you are, but if you are who you are, you have to leave because you need to let this boy have his own childhood. And it's this beautiful male melodrama rife with nostalgia, and nostalgia in the Greek sense of the disease of nostalgia. It's a really, really powerful, poignant half hour of television. It's gorgeous. What about yours?
Mine is the title is In the Eye of the Beholder.
Oh, sure.
Which of course that you've seen.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen, have you watched the episode? Have you watched it? Have you seen that episode?
I'm sure I have. I don't know the episode names.
The episode is one where they're working on this woman in a hospital who has some sort of facial deformity. We don't know as the audience what it is as we're watching. We can just tell because she's masked and sort of covered and all that. And you see the doctors trying to like fix her. And on their last surgery, they've done all they can do. They have bandaged her for like, I don't know, a couple of weeks, and they're revealing the bandages to see if they actually successfully fixed her face. And they reveal the bandages and they scream, oh my God, like failure. It hasn't worked. And then they show what their actual face is. And the woman who's trying to fix looks like a traditional
Yes.
Marilyn Monroe kind of person, and then the doctors are all sort of like
They're
deformed in
great.
some sort of way, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was just, I think, produced so well and sort of like shot in ways that it was like you didn't recognize, you didn't know what she looked like until the very end. Like you weren't aware that you had not seen them
Yeah.
until they do the reveal at the end of the episode. So it's just done very, very well.
You never see from the characters or the doctors and nurses, you never see their faces until the end. It's a double reveal.
Yeah.
Such a brilliant show.
Yeah.
But so that idea of like the Twilight Zone took genre,
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi, horror, Western tropes,
Yeah.
really lowbrow tropes in a sense, and then elevated it to reflect on racism, sexism, bigotry of all kinds, man's humanity towards man. That show resonated with me so profoundly as a child. Thanks, WPIX Channel 11 for your Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve Twilight Zone marathons.
Black and white.
Black and white. I mean,
Yeah.
I was sort of born in the wrong era in a sense, but I
It's
wasn't
like
an
comfort
old
food
soul.
watching those.
Oh, it's genius. But anyway, so as a professional in the media business,
Yeah.
trying to find stories that felt that they were about something,
Mm.
while also digestible for as wide an audience as possible.
Right.
People kind of poo-poo on lowbrow entertainment, but I think when you can find that blend of high and low, it's really alchemical magic.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny. The question of audience is one that's top of mind for me, talking to you both, because we've worked on animated shows, maybe some non-animated shows. But in my mind, ignorantly, I thought, and I revealed this earlier when I was sort of talking about the age you were at while you're asking the things you might have been watching. Honestly, like my bias is animated shows are for younger audiences, right? Of course, I know that's not true,
Right.
but that is the bias,
Sure.
right?
It's still the bias.
Sure, it still is.
the bias.
Starting to slightly overcome it, but not by a lot.
I mean, every year
It's starting
in the
to change.
past 5 years at the Golden Globes, at the Oscars, somebody will make a comment on animation being for kids, and you'll have someone else say, no, animation isn't for kids. Animation is purely a medium of storytelling.
This is one of the first years I think where there have been a widely released animated film, Demon Slayer. Let's see if I
You mean the anime
can
imports? Yeah, Chainsaw Man.
that
Yeah,
made like massive amounts of
huge box office.
just shot the pants off of Hollywood.
So what is it if it's not sort of for kids exclusively, and it is widely commercially successful in the way you just cited? What is it about animation that sort of makes it appeal to whoever it is who likes it? Well, again, the coming in assumption would be that for children, animation reeks of or feels like a cartoon or feels like it's playful in a way that might be more kid adjacent, child adjacent. Obviously not
Just
true.
from the kid in you.
Right, 100%. Right, but obviously that extends to and transcends that and goes to a larger audience. So what is it about animation that actually makes it commercially viable to larger audiences?
Yeah. There's a couple ways to dissect that. One is TV animation historically in the US has tended to skew towards comedy. And you look at something like SpongeBob, it's very physical and quote unquote cartoonish, right? What we call squash and stretch animation. The generations of animated TV viewers have grown up with character driven comedies at the forefront. Features are a little bit different, and the Disney features of the 90s added a level of sophistication for boomers who had grown up with Saturday morning cartoons and Gen Xers who had grown up with Saturday morning cartoons. So features added a layer of sophistication. I think animation, pre-CGI technology, allowed for also a degree of spectacle and world building that no one could ever afford to make in live action. Since the advent of CG technology, computer generated graphics, every Marvel movie, every live action superhero movie is basically an animated movie. It's just photoreal animation versus sort of 2D cell hand drawn animation. But I think what draws animation, what draws people to animation is that sense of, I've never seen this world before, I've never seen this kind of character before, while also tapping into the child in all of us because we did grow up watching those kinds of programs.
Right.
That's I mean, we go to a whole dissertation on this.
Agree, disagree, okay.
Agree 100%. And we pretty much covered all of it. I mean, I think times are shifting in that audiences are looking for something that's new. It used to be every animated movie had the same kind of look and feel, 2D, but CG.
Sure.
And for sure, styles are shifting and changing. And studios, companies are looking to stretch and push the boundaries of the medium
Yeah.
to try and put something out there that hasn't been seen before, because audiences seem to gravitate, as long as it's not unappealing,
For sure.
but appealing in a more kind of dynamic, unique, interesting way.
But it was funny. I mean, when we lived in Davison, I used to sort of run like the film club in Davison,
Right.
and I would start every semester with Blues Brothers and Princess Bride, and I would end every semester with the Star Wars trilogy. Putting in our VHS tapes. But throughout the semester, we would show movies. In the dorms, multi-purpose room.
Stand by me.
Stand by Me. But I remember very distinctly running around the dorm holding the VHS cassette of this movie, Akira,
Okay.
which was one of the first major anime movies to kind of cross into the US. And it was just adult. It was visually unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. And because I was, 19, 20 years old, fast forward 30 years later, there's now a whole generation of Gen Xers and younger
Yeah.
who've seen anime normalized. And you can capture a ton of different subject matters and themes in animation in the international sector in a way that the US market hasn't allowed.
Yeah.
Because, like Tadima said before earlier, about the Disney model was so fairy tale, wish fulfillment, dream come trues, the pixie magic dust. We kind of got tired of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to zoom out a little bit because what's exciting for me again from this conversation is to think about it not as me interviewing two different people in sort of the industry who have had different roles but have been in the same space, but rather the relationship is really what I want to interview, if you will. And so we talked about how you all met. We talked about. We've heard before and after sort of ways in which you've interacted since you met at college for 50th birthdays, whatever. But I just want to sort of, for my own sake and for the audience's sake, tease out sort of the different dimensions of your relationship.
Yeah.
And that can, there's many, obviously.
Sure.
Let me just lay a couple out that we can start with, and you can add more if you want. But of course, there's a personal relationship that you all have and have maintained for quite some time. You all you said you have parallel careers and you work in a similar space, then I have to imagine that might have led to some professional relationship at some point as well too. And so I want to just sort of, let's start with those two, but just sort of tell us sort of the extent to which you all interact and the way you all see your own relationships with each other across those different dimensions.
This is going to be like therapy.
No,
I love this.
this is right up his alley. I mean, for me, like, first of all, I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey, went to a public school, an all boys Catholic school. So that was, we were very different from that standpoint.
Yeah.
And when I got to Vassar, I just met some really weird people.
Yeah.
And Eddie's one of them.
Weird is positive in this.
In
this
a
comment.
very positive way.
Players.
It was weird good. Because I just, and Eddie's one of several friends that I met here who, just like looked different, acted differently, than the type of kids that I kind of grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that shocking at first, and then came around to seeing that this is just a great, great benefit of being here at Vassar. I was just like really fortunate because I guess in my heart I applied to. I grew up in Princeton. I applied to Princeton.
Sure.
Didn't get into Princeton. Was really depressed.
Yeah.
Got my Princeton rejection and my Vassar acceptance on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And my family were like, Vassar! And they were so excited. And I was like, I want to stay here in Princeton. My gosh, that would have been a mistake.
Wrong choice.
That
Yeah.
would have been a mistake. So that was like, again, like one, like that door shut and this other door opened. And
Okay.
I walked through that Vassar door. And it's like, it changed everything for me.
Okay.
I don't know if it really spoke to our relationship.
No, you can build up to it. So, yeah. So, how do you respond to your friend's story?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of being a weirdo, absolutely. I was, now that my parents went to college, and I'm the oldest of my of the three sons. I have two younger brothers, so college application was an absolute mystery to my family, and thank God we had a great college advisor named William Driscoll, who actually ended up getting a job at Vassar working for admissions.
Oh, cool.
But Bill Driscoll said to me, okay, you've been waitlisted at Williams, you've been waitlisted at Vassar, go visit both of the schools and just get a vibe check, and then let me know which school you want to get into, and I'll try and get you into the school you want to get into. So because college was such a weird mystery to me, I took some advice very much to heart, including someone told this advice: write down questions you want to ask the students when you do a site visit. So I get to Williams first, and it's in the middle of nowhere. It's pitch black. It's nowhere near civilization. There's a major road that cuts through the middle of campus. It's poorly lit. The main street of the town is tiny, tiny, tiny. And I felt like I was in the middle of nowhere, which to me as a native New Yorker is very unsettling.
Sure.
So I take out my questionnaire and I go to interview students, and I say to them things like, hi, excuse me, I'm a prospective student. If I were to climb a tree on campus, which would give me the best view?
So weird.
And the Williams students looked at me like, what the absolute?
I might have
Right.
do the same way.
Okay, so flash forward to 2 weeks later, and I was visiting Vassar,
Yeah.
and I was staying with these two women, one of whom I knew from the speech and debate circuit in New York, Erin Murphy. And her roommate, Stephanie, was this very tall, big mane of hair, very voluptuous, bodacious personality. And Stephanie sits me down, and she takes out a jar of pickles and takes out all the pickles, so the jar's just full of pickle juice.
Okay.
And then she takes out
She made a drink?
No, she took out an OB tampon.
Oh.
And she put the tampon in the jar of pickle juice, and she said, listen, Catholic boy, if you're going to go to the school, you need to understand how women's bodies work. This is a tampon, and this is what it does. And so I watched the tampon expand and suck up all the pickle juice. And this jar was like,
Wow.
so then I take out my questionnaire, and I say to these women, if I were to climb a tree,
His voice cracking.
so literally they took me outside,
Yeah.
and we ran into some friends of theirs, and we ended up climbing a tree on the quad. And I was like, this is a place where I can wave my freak flag. And I felt at home. So to go to the sort of question of our relationships, you sometimes know your kin. You sometimes know your people, right? And Damon and I had both intellectual and creative similarities. I think temperamental similarities, as did our friend Michael Fang. But, Damon was sort of the liberal red diaper baby kid. Michael was back then very conservative. And I was a sort of very neutral, ignorant, apolitical person. And I would just watch the two of them to be and just sort of like sit back and observe, very much an observer. When we graduated Vassar, Damon and I both ended up, it just so happened, living in the West Village near each other. It just so happened we both ended up at Nickelodeon. And those were not,
Does it just so happen?
I mean, they weren't like intentional choices.
We just need to be near each other.
Well, yes and, right? Yes and. But when I left New York in 96, after I finished my master's at Tisch and went down to Emory to get my PhD and be a professor, Michael, our sort of other friend in our Holy Trinity, he and Damon both like found their women, were rising in their careers, were beginning to get married, like building homes and families. And I was
They were stabilizing.
They were stabilizing. I was living this very decadent life, reading Freud and watching Hitchcock throughout my entire 20s. They were building their careers, and I was making $12,000 a year. And I remember very distinctly saying to the two of them, like, I feel left out of your career growth, your personal growth, and you have to make a decision to work hard at maintaining and nurturing relationships.
Yeah.
And so we were very proactive in nurturing relationships, I believe.
Yeah, you moved to Atlanta.
Yeah, I was gone from New York.
We were living in New York, living near each other.
You
all
and
of us.
Michael.
Michael and Eddie and myself, our other friend Judd was in Boston. But that was easy. It's like it's in a relationship.
Yeah, it's easy to hang out in the village.
So that's the
Long
big.
together.
That's the big test, right? When someone
Right.
moves away,
Right.
it's like, were we friends because it was convenient?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the answer is no. We were very. We made every effort to go down and visit. Went down a few times. You came up. We stayed in touch. It was and then I had an opportunity to move out to Los Angeles, and I was not excited about that opportunity. I was diehard New York East Coast person. A few times I'd been out to Los Angeles, I was like, it was a combo. Like, it was also very thrilling.
Sure.
Like in Hollywood, you see the Hollywood sign, and you're just like, oh my God, I've arrived. but I just, it was a Florida place. I never really lived anywhere but on the East Coast, and uh, but I had this opportunity. I was dating my wife at the time, who was my girlfriend, and we had been together for 2 years. So I was like, is this like, again, is this a relationship out of convenience? Can it stand the test of distance? And so I actually did move out. You were still in Atlanta, right? So you had aspirations to also be in film. We both studied.
I knew as an academic, like tenure track jobs were already waiting. It was back in the early 2000s.
Sure.
And so I missed being in the business of storytelling. It's one thing to study storytelling, so that many stories come to life.
And so I moved out. I said to my girlfriend, like, well, I'm gonna move out and move to California and set up shop. And then let's see how it goes. Because I knew that if she was gonna follow me out there, that was like a real commitment.
Sure.
I'd be pulling her away from her career. And so I got out there and was kind of getting my feel for the place, and I missed my girlfriend and my best friend a lot. And so she moved out. She did make the move out of, I want to say 4 or 5 or 6 months later.
Okay.
And then you had gotten your PhD and
Yeah.
you were debating
Yeah.
whether you wanted to go into the film industry or TV. You wanted to be in entertainment, but you were like, I think I'm going to move to New York.
You gave me 2 pieces of really
Yeah.
good advice, right? Because I don't have older brothers, right? And I'm the oldest, and I also don't have parents who were living those kinds of like corporate lives.
Sure.
And Damon really gave me 2 great pieces of advice. He said, number one, it's gonna be easier to get a job saying that you were a professor than you were a student, even if you were a grad student.
Yeah.
It's more impressive. And number 2, there's 40 companies in New York, but there's 4,000 in Los Angeles. You have to be where the action is. And so I left being a professor at Emory and moved to Los Angeles with no job at the age of 30 and had to compete against my own former students for entry-level jobs, but I had no ego about it. Like I said to my boss, I will get you your latte, I'll pick up your dry cleaning, I just need that entry point. Right? So checkmate, go at the door, and it worked. And I've been in LA for 23 years. I just left to move to New Orleans full time.
Oh my gosh. One of my favorite cities
Come visit.
in
Come
the
visit.
world.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
I love New Orleans so much. We'll talk about that later.
I
But
advertised my condo in the French Quarter at the back of the Vassar Quarterly.
oh,
I've been very happy that a number of Vassar folks have
Have
taken
been
me
there.
up.
Yeah.
I'm there full time now. But
Yeah.
the point is, you have to sometimes take that giant
Totally.
bold move. No job. I knew 3 people in LA.
Yeah.
I know 5 people in New Orleans, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, those are beautiful stories, and what stuck out to me is that there obviously was an interplay between sort of the personal relationship and sort of the professional trajectory, if you will,
Yeah.
right? And that's before we even talk about you all collaborating on actual creative projects,
Yeah.
right? But just sort of the way of sort of pushing you along the creative journey, if you will, right? It seems so special and like such a gift that I don't think everyone has the privilege of saying their friends are help them do.
No, I mean, look, I love Damon. I love Michael. They are my brothers, my
Absolutely.
fathers. They are my family. And the fact that we can help each other professionally is just the icing on top of the cake. But the cake itself is delicious.
Yeah, share that sentiment.
I love that. So let's talk about actual work that you all done together that exists. I
Sure.
I honestly don't
Yeah,
know. I couldn't,
yeah, yeah.
I couldn't
Well,
tell.
They're short films.
It's no, well, there's
We made a bunch of short
we've had-
films
well,
back
we've
in the
had-
day.
yeah, our paths have been intertwined
Yeah.
from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, even at Vassar, because we weren't film majors,
Right.
we couldn't actually make a student film, but we petitioned the department to allow us to do it, and they let us. So we made a senior film together on VHS. When we were both living in Manhattan, we made a couple of short films in the city, including negotiating with the MTA to use a subway to ourselves, which is amazing. And then when I
Well,
left,
you're skipping ahead. Like there's a so our senior thesis project.
Okay.
And we're not film majors. We're psychology majors, but we took every film class that Vassar had to offer. But they were all history and theory. But like Eddie said, we did not want to leave Vassar without having made something.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we had this opportunity to make a short film our senior year, and petitioned the head of the department, the head of the film production department to be our supervisor, and we went off and made it. I remember it was like 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
And someone recently went back and watched it. It had no right to be longer than about 6 minutes.
It wasn't that bad.
No,
Being too
no,
good.
nothing was
Being
bad.
too
But
good.
I remember I was like, I think I was the cinematographer, you were directing the actors, and I just like was so in love with my shots. And I'm like, I
He's
just
a
want
very
to
talented
linger.
photographer, by the way.
Okay.
He actually is a talented
I
photographer.
want to
Okay.
just like, I just want to like the composition. I love it. Yeah, and Eddie and our film production supervisor was like, cut. I'm like, no. Yes, that was our first. Well, no, that was our first legit thing that we worked on here together. But then for the summer, yeah, like you said, we did a bunch of short films. Okay,
In the same-
now flash forward
Yeah.
to professional life.
Yeah. So, because we have similar temperaments and tastes, we're often attracted to the same kinds of stories.
Sure.
But sometimes the world just forces us together, right? So, for example, when Damon was a development executive at DreamWorks, he had been a longtime fan of one of my author-illustrator clients, Peter Brown.
Okay.
Peter Brown is a very successful author-illustrator of picture books, had finally broken through and written his first illustrated novel called Wild Robot.
Okay.
And it's a very, very beautiful book, very poignant book, and a very poetic book. And Peter has had books of his optioned, but he was very nervous about how Hollywood would destroy this book. And he did not want to sell it to any studio. And a lot of people came knocking,
Yeah.
asking for this book. It began to sort of get some traction, become a New York Times bestseller. And Damon had a relationship with Peter already.
And his editor.
And his editor, Alvina
Yeah.
Lane. So he got a copy of the book, and
Very well. I got a copy of it. I've been tracking it for probably about 6 months while Peter was still writing it. He's
Yeah,
only
okay.
like halfway through writing.
Damon's a really good executive because he gets to the material way
Early.
in advance.
Well, because like when a book is it's gonna be published, there's usually a little announcement in various kinds of trade journals
Sure.
that are just here's like a little like one line description.
An abstract or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I keep my eye on those. And so every so often an abstract and a log line jumps out to me, and the log line combined with the author, illustrator, who I was already a fan
You
of,
already
Peter
knew.
Brown.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, okay,
Well, I want to see how this
that's
turns
gonna
out.
be exactly.
Right.
So I was like, I immediately wrote to his editor. I was like, is there anything to look at? This sounds really interesting. And she said he's actually still in the midst of writing it. He's about halfway done.
Okay.
You know, keep checking in with me, which I did. So every like 2 or 3 months.
I have a question about this though, because I
Yeah.
heard Eddie say that he was phobic about sort of Hollywood and others taking his work and butchering. You use that word, but butchering his work, right? So I'm curious because I actually don't know
Yeah.
what incentive would someone in this position have to share with you unfinished work, given what he knew your role was. But why would he want to do that?
Damon didn't get it from the author.
From the editor.
No, I got it from the editor. Yes, I got it from the editor. But the editor, I mean, the author, I'm sure
Had
was
approval.
Not
aware.
necessarily. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay, but I had the other things I had a track record. So I had made a
They
number
had
of
trusted you.
other movies based on children's books that had turned out well,
Okay.
and that helped. So in fact, when I finally got a chance to take a look at it and finished it, I was one of the first people to see it. This is before you and I actually started talking. I after I saw the whole thing, I'm like, okay, this really is like it's even better than I imagined.
Right.
And then I think we connected. I went to New York to meet with Peter Brown to convince him
Okay.
that
Yes.
DreamWorks Animation
We'll do
is the
right by his
place
book.
for The Wild Robot. And I pointed to, other books that we made. Of course, Shrek was a picture book. The Boss Baby, which I worked on and brought in. And How to Train Your Dragon, another book series. So we had like a really great
Yeah.
track record to point to.
Yeah.
And he did. He said exactly what Eddie said, which is like, if this is done, I still want it to be a typical talking animal movie. I really want it to be something special. And I promised him that we're going to do right by this piece of material.
I, as Peter Brown's rep, was able to negotiate a deal that made the client feel comfortable relinquishing control, which is what every author, what every illustrator needs to understand about the adaptation process. There are sometimes in some contracts in certain businesses what you call a key man clause or a key person clause, where I will only work on this project if that key person is on this project. I tried to get that in Peter's contract, that the project would only move forward if Damon was working on it.
Got it.
Because I trusted Damon, I could say to my client with authenticity, this is the right executive for this project. Of course, DreamWorks would never allow that precedent to be in a contract.
Sure.
But I was able to foster that relationship, and Damon was able to sway it. Damon was also able to sway Dave Pilkey of Captain Underpants, who famously also didn't ever want to sell to Hollywood. Not just to Damon's horn here, but like if you look at the last 30 years of family movies that were based off of books, Damon has either been directly or indirectly responsible for the vast majority of the most successful one of those adaptations.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
there'll be a book written about you someday.
Well, so no,
Once
because
you mention it.
as you all have talked, it's become very clear to me that obviously you both have an affinity, to say it lightly, for each other. And I'm just curious, hearing you talk about how you've collaborated on different projects.
Also, there's Stargirl.
Yeah.
This is
there's
another story. This is the weird
So
story.
No, let's tell the Stargirl one, and then we can come back to the question. They're related.
You start with the beginning.
Another book that I got an early sneak peek at by Jerry Spinelli. This book Stargirl. I was before several months before it was published. Got an early look. Absolutely loved it. Sort of magical, weird, funny. Like it also brought a tear to my eye.
It's a coming of age love story.
Yeah, and this is when I was at Nickelodeon, not at DreamWorks, and but it fit the bill more or less for what we were looking to do there, and convinced Jerry to allow us to option it for Nickelodeon Movies. We worked on it, worked on developing it into a screenplay. At one point, had Paul Feig attached, a very successful
Director of the Housemaid.
Housemaid, most recently, but also Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
But he had written a fantastic script early on. But the book was not, back then, studios were like, well, how popular is the book?
Mm.
And it was actually, in publishing terms, a huge success.
Okay.
But in Hollywood terms.
But then the follow-up question is, well, is it like Harry Potter successful? and the answer to that is always no.
No. Yeah.
That's an absolute phenomenon.
Yeah.
The fact that the book was a big book in the children's children's publishing space did not sway them.
Yeah.
And Paul Feig was not a really well-known director at that point. It was pre-Bridesmaids. So there wasn't enough kind of like clout behind it.
Sure.
It didn't have enough heat. So the studio basically like kind of put it to the side, put it on a shelf, and ultimately the rights, I think, lapsed.
But to Damon's credit, at Paramount, which had Nickelodeon Studios, had went through executive changes at the senior ranks every 3 years.
Okay.
And they kept renewing the option to the book, and Damon had to repitch it to the new studio head. Very often female studio heads, and some of them hated this character of Stargirl, who was the original Automatic Pixie Dream Girl, and some of them really loved her, but like, who was going to play that role? Every major female actress from in the early 2000s was probably considered for the role of Stargirl, and it just never landed. And so they got
It broke my heart that we
loved
couldn't
this
make
one.
this. I
You loved
absolutely
this
loved it. It's the one that sort of got away, but then it came back.
Yeah.
so
In the
it
most
just so
extraordinary
happened,
way.
I ended up representing Jerry Spinelli for film and television.
Okay.
And so we tried setting it up a few times as producers.
Yeah.
We got close a couple of times, and then finally, when Disney was launching Disney Plus, they were able to take it on. And so I was able to take Damon to the premiere, and this weird full circle moment
Came
of
Jerry Spinelli because
Yes.
it was great.
It was a
It was
lovely,
really-
lovely evening to see an author, and you and I both experienced this, to see an author well up with emotion and seeing their vision on screen done right.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
That's when you can really
Yeah.
pat yourself on the back. You did well.
Well, so my question this is actually very helpful you ended on that note, because my question was in the adaptation process. It as a consumer, we have lots of questions about that process, right? And I guess for those who are doing the adaptation, right, people who are in the roles you all occupy or have occupied, and so I guess to start, I'm just curious, as you would think about an adaptation, who are you most loyal to in that process, right? Is it sort of the work? Is it the author? Is it the consumer? Is it the story? Like, how do you think about that question?
Depends on the role.
And it also depends on the kind of book.
Yeah.
Like it's some like for instance, Boss Baby, it's a
Okay.
picture book by Marla Frazee, award-winning, fantastic book, and but it's a it's a picture book. It's just a jumping off point. It's a springboard for
Other
bigger
stories.
idea, just a bigger idea. So when I look at a book like that, I'm like, I love like books that just give you that. They have a kernel of an idea,
Mhm.
something that you can you can water and it can grow.
So
and
you love
flourish into
so,
something.
so
bigger.
you love it, right? But how does the author relate to you saying
Well, so then I say, and the author generally an author of a picture book is like, really?
you want something out of this?
Right.
Right.
That's usually their first reaction. I'm like, no, it's this, but this is a book, but imagine if
Yeah.
you went in this direction, that direction, expanded the world. When it's a book like Stargirl or a Dave Pilkey book, How to Train Your Dragon, even the bad guys, you really the most ideal circumstance is when the author is like, okay, the book is a book, the movie's going to be something different,
Sure.
but but obviously you want to be faithful to, and I endeavor with every project to capture the essence and spirit of what is in the book, the tone, the vibe, oftentimes most of the characters, but when it comes to like story plot details, that often there's more leeway, and you want there to be. You don't want to be too strict about it, because sometimes what works fantastically well as a book
Right,
is not going to translate as a feature film.
Can we just hear there for a
Yeah.
second? So, in your attempt to be sort of honest and have fidelity to sort of the tone, the character that you just mentioned, right? What is the process by which you sort of make your best effort to do that, right? Of course, you read and interpreted the work in some particular kind of way, which may or may not be aligned with sort of the tone or sort of the essence of the character that the author intended, right? So, is there sort of this sort
They're
of like
generally pretty close though.
okay?
Yeah,
And is that because you're just a good reader? Like, I'm not being funny, but I'm trying to figure out, like,
it's so a lot of executives have a reluctance to even want to talk to the author. Damon's married to an author.
okay,
Damon's highly literate.
yeah, right,
Like he respects the author in a
that's
different
what
way.
reference.
right. That's what I was getting at, honestly, right? Because you can imagine there's someone who does it, who just appreciates the work, consumes it in their own way, but doesn't have an appreciation for
More often than
author.
not,
right?
unfortunately, it's like I don't want to option an executive will option a book and then really just not care much about what the author has to say after
Yeah.
that.
I mean, to go back to your original question, right? So if you're the agent or the rep,
Right.
you're fighting for the author and the author's vision being protected.
Mm.
If you're the producer, you're fighting for the project getting greenlighted and made. If
Right.
you're the studio, you're fighting for audience dollars.
Right.
So your focus is completely different depending on which position you play in the stream of the
Yeah.
adaptation.
Yeah. Which ones have you played?
I've been both.
Three. Okay, three of
No,
those.
because
things.
I've been a rep.
Okay, yeah.
I've represented authors and illustrators and
Right.
published and sold books to executives.
Right.
I've been an executive producer of 5 movies, 4 of which were based off of books.
Okay.
And I've also been a studio exec buying in, just as Steve, I've been a studio exec buying in.
Hmm.
So I've worn all 3 hats.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see, and this is a lesson I learned in Hollywood that I apply to other industries. There are people,
Yeah.
and there are project people. Producers have to be project people and people.
Mm.
Because the end goal is to move the project forward. That's why we get the Oscar for Best Picture.
Yeah.
It's the producer who gets the Oscar for Best Picture. It's that person, not the studio executive.
Right.
It's that producer who made the thing happen.
Yeah. So interesting. We talk about adaptation a little bit, but let's talk about
Before
yeah.
we
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a big shout out
Please.
to Vassar Professors.
yeah, please.
So Jim Stearman, Sarah Kozloff in the film department, Peter Antilles, he taught a film and literature class, hugely profoundly influential.
yeah.
Beth Darlington taught a King Arthur class. There was a husband-wife couple, whose name I forget, who taught a Sherlock Holmes class.
Okay.
And that the Vassar education gave us very practical intellectual grounding in these discussions that informed our careers.
Yeah.
So I just want to shout out those professors who really
Bring in
delivered us,
Of
shaped our career.
We never left that.
That's good.
Yeah.
But I want to talk a step before the adaptation process, which is sort of the scouting
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Because I know you all said it, and I can imagine you scout for stories everywhere,
Yeah.
right? You scout at book fairs,
Yes.
books, magazines, whatever,
Yep.
right? So I have a question I want to get to in a second, but just sort of at the table, what, and to put a fine point on it, what sort of sticks out to you in the scouting process? What sort of makes something feel like
Sticky.
sticky? Yeah, a
Right.
story that's worth you doing the fighting to make it get to production.
I mean, for me, it's really, it is a gut thing. It's an instinct thing. You hear about an idea, you read a little log line, or you read a paragraph description, and
Yeah.
you don't really need much more than that, like maybe a page or two.
Mhm.
And for it just, it's like my eyes light up with it. You don't like. I'm just like, yeah, I like it. If it immediately sparks, like, oh my
More
god, we
ideas.
could go there and there with it. Then I know there's something to
Yeah.
build upon. But if I don't feel that, then sometimes I feel like, oh, I can see how this could be expanded, but it's not my taste. So
Yes,
it's
that's my
only-
project, right?
I may
Someone
not
else
be the
should do
best
this.
producer
Right.
or executive for this project, but I can see somebody wanting to make it.
Right.
Do you want to tell the Imperial Death Monkey story? Or was that Kuzer?
No, that was me, but
So
okay, yeah, you tell
want
me.
to tell the story
Tell
for him?
me.
Yeah.
So we both gone to the Bologna Book Fair,
Okay.
the world's largest children's publishing convention
Okay.
in Bologna, Italy. Damon, being a very good executive, is not just scouting for things that are about to be published. He will also say to book agents, what are your clients working on now
Yeah.
that you haven't sold to a publisher yet?
Yeah.
So he's getting stuff early on.
Yeah.
So when
The
you're scout,
the unlisted house on the market.
exactly. Right, that's exactly right. Where you are a scout, you want to get the jump on your competition.
Yeah.
So you have to ask smart questions like that. You also have to do a report. Like I'm a scout for a producer right now, but I have to do a weekly report. I literally just hit send before I
Right.
do
Came
this
down
podcast.
here.
So David asked this book agent a question, which was, what are your clients working on that you haven't sold to publishers yet?
Mm-hmm.
He includes in his report a title of a project that's not yet been written.
But there was like a page description.
Sure.
It was a page. It was a page proposal for
Barely. It was like a few sentences.
it hadn't been sold to a publisher.
Right.
So I get a call Sunday morning, right after I got back from Bologna, from DreamWorks' business affairs lawyer. Says Jeffrey Katzenberg wants to option Imperial Death Monkeys. It's his wife's birthday. He wants a deal done by 5 o'clock. I'm like, first of all, who is this?
Hi. Hello. Who are
Happy
you?
Sunday. Second of all, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What had happened was Damon had spoke to one book agent, a book agent that I happened to represent his agency.
Okay.
He happened to mention to Damon this author was working on a book called Imperial Death Monkeys
Okay.
that hadn't been written yet. So we were able to structure
I
it.
knew
to
very
get-
little bit about it, but the title made me laugh.
So that's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. It's the alchemy of words. I had a client who had a picture book idea, Viking Nanny. You're chuckling.
It's interesting.
The alchemy of words.
Yeah.
When you are writing words
Yeah.
that can generate an emotional reaction like that,
Yeah.
You got something.
you have something.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can see it in your head,
Yeah.
boss baby, a little baby holding a bottle in a briefcase,
Yeah.
you
There's
see it.
something. Yeah.
And in Hollywood, this is what a lot of publishing people don't understand. In Hollywood, we are so idea and concept and title driven. We traffic in movie posters and thumbnails on streaming platforms.
Sure.
Publishing relies on the execution of the
Right.
manuscript, the voice.
Right.
Hollywood doesn't work that way. It's completely different.
Yeah.
So as an agent, I had to explain that to
To your clients.
clients. And as a scout, I have to be the ambassador and the translator between these two industries to be able to find the executives who do have vision.
Yeah. Right. I love it. And it makes sense. Adaptation to me does feel like an act of translation.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
right. Done.
Yes.
I'll say one last thing
Please.
about authors like Dave Pilkey and Aaron Blady. Dave Pilkey and Captain Underpants, Dogman, right? Juggernaut series, and Aaron Blady and all that guys.
Yeah.
And both of them were had the same approach and attitude towards an adaptation. They wanted the movie to be a book plus experience. And I remember that. That's just, and that's where I was coming from as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to deliver on the essence and spirit of the book.
Yeah.
Obviously, especially with a book series that's quite popular, you don't want to disappoint the fans. The fans are showing up because they want to see the characters in the world with settings that they fell in love with in the series translated on screen.
Right.
But the authors in particular, and this was what made this process so much fun, they wanted it to be more than just the books.
They
They
wanted to keep going,
they wanted
grow,
yes,
expand,
and bring something new.
Yes.
So it wasn't just redundant.
Yes,
It was an extrapolation.
absolutely.
And that was like, as an executive development executive producer, like that is the best scenario. Book plus experience.
I love that. So, in the sort of realm of adaptation, scouting, and all that kind of stuff, as I was thinking about this, I had this thought: there's an activity coming, so just indulge me. But the scouting process for me seems like a very external process, right? You're going to search for stories, sort of in other places, right? Which is a very exciting, fun process. But my bias is that people, you all, have, because you're doing so much of that, you're not attending to the beautiful stories in yourself that could be source material.
Sure.
And so I would like each of you, since you know each other so well, to tell me what you think like an untapped piece of source material is in the other, or some sort of project. Yes. Is the question clear?
Yeah. Yes.
I have a quick answer. It's a rom-com.
Hold on. Let him think. Only when you both are ready to share will we start the process.
I'll tell mine. You'll buy him time.
Okay.
So, Damon worked at Nickelodeon, which was owned by Viacom.
Yep.
When he was dating his now wife, his wife was an editor at Simon & Schuster.
Okay.
It was owned by CBS. Viacom and CBS merged, so they were the same company. Their offices were 4 blocks away from each other in Midtown Manhattan. So their courtship process was basically a series of expensed lunches and dinners, and they would just trade off, meeting up, and then filing those meetings on their expense report because they weren't doing business.
Yeah.
But like the sort of weird Manhattan rom-comminess of expensing your dates, to me, I was like, man, you have gamed the system.
I love that. Viacom's Simon & Schuster love story.
No,
It's called Synergy.
The company paid for the first 6 months of our
Synergy and Love Story.
I love that. That is good.
Great. That's good, man. I don't think I could top it. That's the rom-com. Yeah, it's good.
It's your meet cute.
Yeah.
Your meet cute is an awkward meeting with the editor. Like, so I'm a producer. Well, what books do you have that I can make into a movie? Oh, you're really hot.
You have to
What is yours? I mean, I don't know what the genre is exactly, but
we just tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that like Eddie, we had all this, we had similar paths here at Vassar, and then it looked like we were going to be on a similar path professionally, and then Eddie pivots. And instead of like continuing to advance and grow
program
in his career professionally, he's like, I'm gonna go and get a master's degree at NYU, and then I'm gonna move to Atlanta and get a PhD and be a professor. I'm like, whoa, dude, you are going in like some like, this is not the path.
Right.
What about our whole thing? We're supposed to do everything together. So it's a little like, maybe your movie is like Sliding Doors or something like that, where it's like, there's like different dimensions. There's like, it's like an interdimensional thing, but in one path, we were tied at the hip from our first year here at Vassar to today, and everything we did the same, and we followed the exact same. Sliding Doors is like, if you remember this film, she misses I think she's trying to catch a subway, and in one reality she makes it, and in another reality she doesn't, and then you trap the two different paths.
It's a bromance.
I literally no.
So-
Before you said that, I was like, oh, it's like the
Thank you.
romance where one of them does that because the other like
But what's
leaves to go do the whole
incredible
thing.
about-
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I literally had in my mind the word
Thank
romance
you.
gone awry, and not awry, but it's like
Yeah,
deviates.
like R-rated, vulgar, like Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly, Step
What
Brothers.
was fantastic about Sliding Doors is those two alternate paths that the lead, the protagonist takes. But in the end, they
course.
all end up in the same spot.
Of course.
I like that your movie about me is about you.
Like you're in my universe.
So
Again, well,
Yeah,
later when we talk about a thing, we'll talk more about the simulation. But he's in my
Yeah.
simulation. But yes, it all it all came back. It's full circle. Like you took this path. I'm like, no, my friend.
I was going to become a psychoanalyst. And I realized at the age of 28, I was far too mature to help adults with adult problems because I was an adult. I didn't know how to drive. I didn't drink. I didn't own a pet or a
Yeah.
planet. I didn't own a major appliance.
Yeah.
Like, how can I help grown-ups with real life problems? I don't live in the real world. So I gave up becoming a psychoanalyst.
Oh my gosh. You all, it's so funny. Honestly, hearing you all talk about this, and thank you for indulging that exercise. That's very interesting, those specific projects. It's sort of like friendship is it's like a creative tool, right? I mean, it really, that's not horribly insightful, but
A true friendship is generative.
exactly,
Absolutely.
right? And it's a creative
AI?
Well, I was gonna say it's creative technology, but then I got scared myself because it bumps up against AI. But it is. You're right. The true friendship is generative in ways that create beautiful things, like what you all have just done now, but also done in real life throughout.
But no hallucinations.
That can be part of it too. He lives in New Orleans.
If
for
there's
goodness sake.
substances involved.
He's around a lot of energy, so there might be some hallucinations in his life day to day.
We're also sleepless. Like we're on flights all the time.
So before we sort of go into the final segments of our podcast, I just want to sort of ask you all what keeps you creating, what keeps you storytelling, and the backdrop of that question is you all know better than I that the creative industry, the storytelling industry, has gone through incredible disruption, changes. Some think it might be sort of a dark day in Hollywood or in the creative industry broadly, right? And so even given that, you all still have creative spirits. You're still producing right here at this table. And so what keeps that coming? What keeps that juice flowing in you?
I mean, it's funny. It goes back to hallucinations. I literally have scenes in my head running constantly, and I have to put them on a piece of paper, and I have to see them made into something. I've always been like that. Since I was a little child, I was writing plays and making little movies because I had these images in my brain, and it sounds a little psychotic, but there's a compulsive quality to the creative impulse in me.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to sound pretentious, but like I can't help it.
Yeah.
So like I'm producing a micro budget feature on campus in June right after reunion, and I want it to be an all Vassar cast and crew, and so we're just putting department heads together right now. But that project germinated from an original idea of mine. I hired a New York Times bestselling author to write a book proposal. We're going to have the senior adapt that and be supervised by an alum. It's going to be directed by an alum. And because I know how the business works, I know the machinations in order to make something
That happen.
happen.
Yeah.
But it is an exorcism of these scenes in my head that have lived with me for 20 years.
You gotta get it out.
I got to get them
I
out.
love that. I love that.
That's me.
Yeah. What about you, David?
For me, I would say it's these. Okay, so you start a project, you work on it. Hopefully, it gets made. It can take years. At the end of the day, if you're fortunate, it sees the light of day, and then it is out there in the world.
Yeah.
And then you start to get these texts from people. I'm getting them quite frequently. Videos of like, this is my kid watching your movie.
Yeah.
Or or we just saw your poster or whatever, and it's like from all across the country and around the world.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. And to see just how much fun people are having enjoying the work. So that keeps me going.
So fun. I love it. We're gonna pivot to our penultimate segment, which is our student hot seat segment.
Okay.
So there's 3 questions.
Okay.
You can decide to either answer them, both of you answer, or you can sort of choose one person to answer each question. However you want to do it. Okay. There's 3 questions. The first is Do you want some water? I have water.
Oh,
We get some water.
That'd be great.
Yes, thank you. Of course. That'll get you prepared, bring your pressure down a little bit before these questions. They're not actually stressful questions, so don't get your pressure up. It's not that serious.
Don't you take drugs for that anyway?
Uh,
Prescription drug,
Yes,
yes.
yes, yes.
There you go.
Perfect.
Thank
You're
you.
so welcome. So the first question is: are there books or source material that you would consider impossible to adapt?
No, nothing is impossible to adapt. There's always going to be a clever, creative way into capturing the essence of the source material.
Okay. Answer number one.
wow. I can't. I have to. I mean, anything is possible. Again, I think there's some material that is so maybe inherently not visual, but I'm sure there's a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a creative person and probably solve it. Yeah.
Okay. I love being at a table with optimists. That's
Yes.
wonderful. Question two. Say you are a film professor or college professor, and you can teach any adapted material. Which one would you pick and what would you teach?
My favorite, and there's actually books about this, is taking fairy tales and looking at the evolution of fairy tales in the written form and in the adapted form, because each iteration is reflective of its own culture and time and place and political and socioeconomic issues. And Red Riding Hood, there's whole anthologies of academic work about Red Riding Hood specifically. As someone who is creating a slate of young adult novels that are all genre fiction that are going to be adapted into movies based on fairy tales, one of them being a Red Riding Hood story. Like, I've long been obsessed with the academic aspects of the evolution of fairy tale in different media.
That's super cool, especially what's made for you.
Mine's going to sound a little generic, but probably start with like Hero's Journey, Joseph Campbell. But my caveat would be just study Star Wars, right? Just study Star Wars. It hits all those same beats.
Yeah.
But it's the foundation of storytelling. Once you've got the foundation locked down, then you can subvert it.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in stories and movies and TV shows that play with the structure and upend
Yeah.
classic storytelling.
Yeah.
But you've got to know you got to have a good understanding of the foundation first.
When I was at Nickelodeon from 2019 to 2024, Nickelodeon had what they called Mickey University. And so I did a lot of work with that group, including doing a whole session on the hero's journey. But we updated it.
Yeah.
So there's the heroine's journey and the hero's plural journey, the group journey. And so I would just expand beyond. So what are the Campbell, Joseph Campbell roots, but then what are the new versions as well?
That's right. Right. Exactly.
Wonderful. Third question.
Yes.
What is the largest creative risk you've taken in your career?
Starting my own company after being laid off, going all in. I have to put my money where my mouth is.
Let's go. Answer, but I'll come back to that in a second.
I mean, for me, probably two things. Moving to Los Angeles, I don't know if it's creative risk, but because I continue to work with Nickelodeon movies, but it was a big geographical change, and it was definitely a risk, and it certainly paid off. It was going to be a 2-year experiment. It was going to come back to New York after 2 years.
Yeah.
It's been
Been a long
time. And then probably was what I'm about to do, which let's see why I can't talk about it. But I've been at DreamWorks Animation for 19 years, and starting in 2 weeks, I will be looking at Sony Pictures Animation. So it's been an end of an era, a new chapter for me. It's bittersweet because I love DreamWorks Animation. I love the people there, the projects, the culture. There's so much about it that's like a family.
Yeah.
And I feel like I used to say when I worked at Nickelodeon for 12 years that I bleed orange,
Yeah.
which I still do. I still do to a degree. But 19 years is a long time in one place.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to walk away, but I'm excited for what's next, and this is the year of novelty. I've
Yeah.
decided that's my word.
Well, congratulations,
Thank
first and foremost.
Appreciate it.
And of course, it's having you said that actually, because it sort of is a nice way, and we're already on transitions, and you sort of just sort of teased one transition that happened recently in your life, and so because you are here, in fact, for Software Career Connections, I just wanted to sort of give you a few moments to sort of give your elevator pitch on why it's so exciting and important for you to have gone all in this way, start your own business, and sort of put your money where your mouth is, the way that you said earlier.
I mean, it all starts with self-advocacy and knowing your own value and greenlighting yourself, to use a holiday term. I personally grew up in a low-income, first-gen family.
Sure.
My dad, God bless him, God rest his soul, as an immigrant, Catholic, Latino, literally said to my brothers and I, never ask for a raise. Just be glad you have a job. Be glad that you can put food on the table. If you put food on the table, you're a success. And that was profoundly limiting to my brothers and I. We became profoundly financially illiterate, but also we didn't know how to advocate for ourselves. And so when I was in my 40s, I began to learn those habits. And I knew very early on in my contract with Paramount, seeing the stock drop, learning financial metrics, right, learning how to follow the market. Paramount was losing hundreds of millions of dollars quarter after quarter. I knew that my job was going to terminate. I'm the cherry on top of the cream, on top of the ice cream as a scout.
Right.
Overpaid to read kids' books. Like, I knew that. So I had to develop a backup plan. So I squirreled away a lot of money, as much as I could. I bought a very cheap place in New Orleans. And when I was ultimately laid off, I had the benefit of 14 months left on my contract, which gave me an extraordinary runway
Yeah.
to then do hundreds of informational meetings with people, not just in entertainment, not just in publishing, but also education, technology, finance, and to ask a question, where is the world going? And I took those lessons and used it to inform my business plan. And I gifted myself an LLC for my birthday. I gave myself a gift of a company. And I knew, and Dave and I both have hundreds and hundreds of unemployed friends in Hollywood right now. The only way forward is by saying yes to yourself. I do have the blessing of no parents, no spouse, and no kids. So I'm all in on me.
Right.
I'm very I'm a certified death doula, and it's one of the reasons why I'm in New Orleans. That city is a wabi-sabi city.
No, I
It is a place where you celebrate life amidst the death. You celebrate the beauty amidst the decay. And for me, I want to be in a place that is profoundly creative, profoundly entrepreneurial, while also remembering at any given moment it's all out.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. For the end of our segment today, I would love for you all to present to me, to each other, to the viewers, your show and tell Saltline items.
The homework.
So this is hopefully going to bring it all together. You jotted things down. Okay, wow. So for those, I think you're ready. For those who have not been familiar, this segment is when we're asking our guests to bring physical items something, things that contrast and sort of signify their own salt lines in their lives. And so I'm excited to see what our guests brought today.
Sophisticated stupid counts one.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not a
Yeah.
physical item.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll write it down.
Yeah.
Piece of paper. All right, I'll start. I'll quickly start. So
You know this?
No.
Oh,
I grabbed. Yeah, I think I told you. I grabbed these two crystals.
Oh, yes.
It's two crystals, which are I got them at a sound bath. Have you ever done a sound bath?
not a sound bath, no.
Do you know what they are?
Yeah, I do know what they are. Yeah.
Very sort of meditative experience it is, and there's a
Wes has his own.
you have your own.
Wes has his own sack of crystals.
Holy-
I love this.
But are they the same? I wrote
This
down
is-
what these are.
This is a rose quartz. I can't tell.
Yeah,
These are-
looks like
yeah,
rose
that's
quartz.
what I wrote this out. Yeah.
This is rose quartz. The pink one is rose. This is
You know
the
this.
pink
You know
one.
the word. You know the word for
Oh
sure.
my gosh,
It's for
that's
sure.
amazing.
For sure.
So do you know what? I wrote down rose quartz. It benefits the center. I'm sorry, it centers on love, emotional healing, and stress relief. believed to open the heart chakra, promote self-love,
You see, mine is shaped like a heart.
foster
Mine is a heart
compassion.
shape.
This one is shaped like a heart.
Good guys.
What on earth is happening?
Can-
This is wild. Foster compassion, calm anxiety, fear, and grief, but scientifically proof is lacking.
Okay.
That's part of the convergence that I'm
Yeah.
actually talking about. So when you do a sound bath, sometimes they give you a crystal and you lay it on your chest, and it's supposed to amplify the effects of the sound bath, which is sort of this process where the vibrations of the bowls, the practitioner plays bowls, and it shifts your brain waves into a much more meditative state. Very calming. It's extraordinary because it's like an hour long, and the bowls start, and then it's over, and it feels like the whole thing is about 7 minutes. And you're like, well, wait a second, why is it over? And they're like, oh, it's been an hour. And that's bizarre. That's wild to me. So when I first was introduced, my wife introduced these to me, and we do them like once every couple months. There's one in the desert at Palm Springs. Outside of Palm Springs, it's like the
Shout out to the Integratron.
Integratron, which is the mothership.
Okay.
Sound baths. If you ever get a chance, check it out. For me, it's like this convergence of, it's spiritual-ish, but it's also kind of rooted in there is a science behind it.
Right.
That felt to me like, and also there's something just like if you were to tell me that I would be somebody doing sound baths and just sort of just even entertaining the woo woo. When I left Vassar, I would have laughed to myself.
This is what happens when you live in Los Angeles for 25 years.
Maybe this is.
You get super.
It's really more for my wife, who really does lead in this stuff and has introduced me to it. So and then growing up in like my mom was a Freudian slip. That's a Freudian slip right there.
On camera.
My mom was like devout atheist and really was believed, only in like science and data. My father was raised Jewish, converted to Catholicism.
Wow.
And became a deacon
Oh,
in the Catholic Church. So here we have also this sort of intersection and convergence of science and spirituality.
Yeah.
And so that is
That's
sort of
cool.
what these represent for me.
Thank you for sharing.
That is
Isn't
shocking.
that great?
That's funny. That's funny. I don't know if Jimmy can get a close up of the crystals, but like, it's funny.
Let's hold them both up. These are different, but they're both shaped like a heart. And these are the same exact
right.
stone.
Amazing.
Crystal.
Very fun.
So when
Are we related?
when Jeanette Swanson had sent the homework assignment bringing 2 objects, I was already in London. I was already on the road.
Okay, yeah.
And so there's 2 things because this is my home.
Yes.
My backpack is my home.
Yes.
Ironically, when we graduated,
Yeah.
I had hired Damon's then girlfriend to draw a corporate logo for a company I was going to start back then called Hermit Crab Productions, because the crab carries its on its back. 30 years later, I didn't really live that life. So the 2 objects are what frequent flyers will call a brag tag, and this is my million miler Delta tag. And I don't have this on to brag.
Sure.
But to me, this is the equivalent of wearing a college hoodie or an enamel or pin. It is a conversation starter.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of really interesting conversations with people in the airplane terminals all over the world because they'll see this and like, oh, wow, you fly a lot. And it just creates really interesting human moments for me. But I was talking to a very important person to me, this one, Kate Orsini, is class of 97, and we're talking about a sense of home. And she has built her apartment in Beverly Hills to be like this nest. And she asked me, well, what's your nest? And I said, Gate 35, Terminal 4 at JFK. I grew up commuting to high school. I took a train, a ferry, and a subway. It took me 90 minutes to get to high school each way. And so I grew up on the move. And I feel very comfortable in transition in those liminal spaces. And so this is a kind of a physical representation of me constantly in motion,
Yeah.
but also where I feel comfortable. The second object is something I carry with me all the time, which is a copy of the U.S. Constitution. And I've had it on my person for, decades. And part of it is because I find that the political discourse, even amongst liberal communities, is still sometimes quite myopic. And had our friend Michael Faneuil been here, we would have engaged in perhaps a little bit more political conversation. Again, he, in his college years, was much more conservative. David was much more liberal, and I was very apolitical. And part of my maturation has been to become more politically savvy to the point where I've been an elected city official in Los Angeles. And what to me makes what makes America an amazing place is that we are allowed to dissent.
Sure.
And so, because I travel internationally as well, especially with the new administration, especially with border control, this idea that we could be stopped at a port or stopped in an airport or stopped at a point of entry. And because I've written critical things about Trump or Republicans, that I may be detained. So I carry this copy of the Constitution with me as a reminder of I have the rights to speak against the leadership. It is endemic and it is inherent in what it means to be an American. And we're at a moment where that's all in jeopardy right now, and it terrifies me. But what also terrifies me is that in social media, amongst my liberal friends, especially my Vassar friends, we make a lot of observations about how bad things are. We make a lot of lamentations about how bad things are. And I don't see enough practical calls to action. And I just want us to reclaim the flag. I don't think nationalism is, by its very nature, an inherently conservative idea or negative thing. We should be proud of all the great things that America has afforded us over the years. Is it perfect? No. Is it still effed up? 100%. But the fact that we can have what we have is better than most other countries. I heard a lot of liberal friends say, "Well, I'm going to leave America. I'm going to move to Portugal, and I'm like, Italy's fascist, France is fascist leadership as well. But it's not better other places. Don't leave. Fight to make this place better. This is a great place, and I hate to even use the word great because it's so fraught now because of the president. America is amazing. We can change it. We literally can run for office. Occupy the seats of power. Stop whinging on social media and go run for a school board. Occupy the seats of power. That is how change will be affected for the better. Sorry.
No. It's holding up my heart crystal to you.
Yes. Yes. As I wave my American flag.
Well, thank you both so much for your explanations of your activity. They're so meaningful and so thoughtful. And honestly, thank you for this conversation. I'm grateful for it because you all were so generous with your thoughts, your perspectives, your ideas. And also, we had a new experience together. Us being together for the first time in this constellation, but also us having on this podcast 2 guests. So I'm just grateful that you took that ride with me.
Think you'll do it again?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Need to ruin it for you?
Not at all.
Okay.
You set the bar really high, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be, a little Abbott and Costello, a little Forlorn Hardy.
You go for 3.
You can try 3.
Yeah.
I love
Round
that.
table. Round table.
Yeah. I love it.
Look, you do a great job with this podcast. I've listened to a bunch of episodes. I've learned a ton. Thank you for doing all the great research and asking insightful and great provocative questions.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Of course. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Conversation at the Southline. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.